"This is the last gift I will ever give you," my husband declares coldly, sliding the divorce papers across the table. He confesses his plan to marry someone else, reducing me to nothing more than a financial asset he's used for years. The man I've shared so many intimate moments with has revealed himself to be utterly despicable. This marks the beginning of my tale of vengeance. My name is Helen, and this year, as I turn 52, I face a pivotal moment. Tomorrow isn't just another day, it's the end of a long period of debt that I will finally settle. My husband Scott and I have poured our sweat and tears into our life together since we tied the knot 22 years ago when I was 32 and he was 34. He owned a liquor store, a family business passed down from his late parents, while I worked in an office. We met through a mutual friend and quickly started dating, leading to marriage. Back then, my only worry was whether he'd expect me to help run the store. I was a financial consultant, advising individuals and businesses on insurance and investments. I earned a decent salary, loved my work, and was studying for a certification to further advance my career when Scott proposed. He assured me he supported my ambitions wholeheartedly. "I know how hard you've been working for your certification, and I want to support you in any way I can," he said. He had enough staff to manage the store, so he encouraged me to chase my dreams. His support was crucial in my decision to marry him. He seemed genuinely kind and always in my corner. We entered our marriage with a clear understanding. He would manage his business, and I would focus on my career. Our future seemed bright. However, about a year into our marriage, things began to shift. One afternoon, while I was enjoying a rare day off, I decided to vacuum under the bed. The vacuum snagged on something, a pile of papers. We had only moved in less than 8 months ago, so the mess surprised me. I curiously picked up a crumpled sheet and smoothed it out. The bold header instantly caught my attention. Reminder of payment. Below that, an outstanding debt of $320,000 in Scott's name stared back at me. It wasn't $3,000 or even $30,000. It was a staggering, life-altering amount. My heart pounded as I tried to comprehend why he'd hidden this from me. As soon as Scott returned home, I confronted him. "What is this debt? What's going on?" He didn't hesitate. "It's not what you think. This debt was left by my parents," he explained, his voice calm. It wasn't personal debt, but one tied to his liquor store, inherited alongside the business. The debt was secured against both the store's land and the house we lived in. Scott had no intention of renouncing the inheritance, no matter the risk. While it wasn't his fault, the debt was real and couldn't be ignored. "This is a payment reminder," I said, pointing at the paper. "Aren't you supposed to be making monthly payments?" "I do," he replied, though there was a hint of strain in his voice. "But sales can be inconsistent, especially during slower months." That was the moment I realized our marriage, and everything we built, was on shaky ground, and that this secret debt would soon unravel everything. "I can't cover the payments right now. I have to prioritize paying my staff, so I've asked the creditors to wait." Scott's explanation seemed reasonable at first, but the bold final notice on the reminder was hard to ignore. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry," he quickly added. "Don't stress about it. The business is doing well overall. Look, we haven't been evicted or anything, right?" Though what he said was technically true, the fact that he had kept this from me gnawed at me. I stared at him, my anxiety evident, but before I could process it further, he threw me a curveball. "If you're so worried, why don't you help pay it off? You're earning quite a bit, aren't you?" His suggestion sent a wave of unease through me. The store wasn't mine, and yet, in a marriage, aren't partners supposed to support each other? "My debt is your debt too," he added abruptly. "If my store went under, it would affect a lot of people. It's become crucial to the community." I couldn't deny that. His store was a cornerstone of the neighborhood, nestled in the suburbs where other shops and supermarkets were few and far between. He didn't just sell liquor, he offered fresh goods like meat and fish and even provided a home delivery service. I'd been to the store many times, and I had seen firsthand how much the customers appreciated its presence. It wasn't just a business, it was a lifeline for many. "Please, I need your help with the debt," he pleaded, his eyes sincere. "I'll keep focusing on the business, but I can't do this without you." His dedication to his work was undeniable. The thought of the store closing wasn't just painful for him, it would also be a loss for the entire community. I felt the weight of the decision pressing on me. Being married means supporting each other through thick and thin, I reminded myself. If he was struggling, wasn't it only right for me to step in? Okay, I'll help, I finally said, though my voice felt heavier than usual. I'll put as much as I can toward the debt every month from my salary. You focus on running the store. I agreed, hoping this would stabilize things. After all, while I could help financially, the store was his responsibility to manage. At the time, I was relieved that he trusted me with something so important. But looking back, this was the moment everything began to change. 4 years passed since I started contributing to the debt, and in that time, Scott's late nights became more and more frequent. He would stumble in at all hours, reeking of alcohol. "What kept you out so late? You smell like a bar," I'd ask, trying to mask my growing concern. "Just had a few drinks with some customers," he'd respond casually, brushing it off. But with each late night, my worry deepened. Something was shifting, and I feared what might come next. When I asked, "Did you make this month's payment?" his response didn't come as easily as it should have. His tone was laced with condescension. "I did last week," he said. "You know the store relies on you. You better keep up with the payments," he added dismissively. At first, I brushed off these comments, thinking they were just the ramblings of a drunk. But as his demands became more frequent, they started to grate on me. It became clear that Scott genuinely believed it was entirely normal for me to shoulder his financial burdens. "By the way, Benjamin just had his third kid," he mentioned offhandedly one day. Benjamin, his old high school friend, was also a business owner whose wife worked alongside him in their store. His comment made me reflect on our situation, and I finally voiced the question that had been lingering in my mind. "I've been meaning to talk to you," I said, trying to gather my courage. "Don't you think it's time for us to start a family?" Scott's reaction was cold and dismissive. "A baby? My business is just beginning to pick up, and we're still in debt. How can we even think of that responsibility now?" His firm stance stunned me. "But Benjamin has 3 children," I countered, trying to keep my frustration in check. "Surely we can manage one?" "His situation is different," Scott retorted sharply. "His parents are still around to help, and his wife is actively involved in the business. We're not in the same position." His words crushed my hopes. "So, until all your debts are cleared, we can't even consider having a baby?" I asked, seeking some form of clarity. "That's how it's going to be," he said bluntly. "If you make enough money and pay off the debts quickly, then I'll think about it." His smirk made my stomach churn, but it also fueled a determination in me. I was naively committed, driven by the desire to start a family, even if his demands were irrational. I threw myself into work with renewed dedication, pursuing additional qualifications, taking on promotional exams, and securing salary increases, all in the hopes of resolving the debt faster and finally starting the life I had envisioned. I had started to earn significantly more than most women my age, even making advanced payments on Scott's debts. My efforts were relentless, fueled by a mixture of hope and desperation. The debt hung over us like a constant shadow, and before I knew it, I was 40. The dream of having children had slowly slipped away. Despite this, I comforted myself with the thought that I still had my husband Scott. He needed me, and I believed in our life together. That belief kept me content. As the years passed, Scott began coming home later and later. Sometimes he wouldn't return until the next morning, always with the excuse that he had been with a customer and lost track of time. He was working hard to keep the store afloat, or so he said. Seeing his supposed dedication, I felt compelled to continue supporting him. We were in this together, I thought, sailing toward a better future. The years rolled on, and finally, the day approached when I would make the last payment on the debt. All the sacrifices, all the luxuries I had foregone. Soon, I wouldn't have to hold back anymore. I could finally enjoy the money I worked so hard for. Reflecting on our marriage, I realized how much of our life had revolved around finances. We had never taken a real vacation or even enjoyed a nice dinner out. Now in our 50s, I hoped we could start enjoying those things. On the day the final payment was due, I took the day off work to prepare a special celebration. I cooked an elaborate dinner, complete with a bottle of wine and Scott's favorite chocolate cake. I set the table beautifully, eager to celebrate our newfound financial freedom together. As I stood back, admiring the set, I thought about how quickly the last 22 years had flown by. It feels like it's been a long time, but the last 22 years have gone by so fast, haven't they, honey? I remarked as Scott walked in. His head was bowed, and his shoulders were trembling. Was he crying from happiness? Or was there another reason behind his emotion? To my utter shock, he erupted into a laughter I had never heard before, cold, mocking, almost sinister. What the hell is going on? Are you okay? I asked, bewildered and alarmed. With an air of audacity, Scott looked me in the eye and made a shocking declaration. You are dismissed now. I'm grateful to you for the past 22 years. Thanks to you paying off all my debt, I'm a free man. Great job. I don't need you anymore. His words left me stunned. What are you talking about? I managed to say, genuinely confused. He pulled a document from his bag and slid it across the table. This is my last present to you, he said smugly. The bold letters of a divorce petition seared into my vision. Proudly, he continued, I've decided to marry someone else, so you're no longer of any use to me. Thanks for being my cash dispenser until now. I stared at him, heart pounding. Are you getting remarried? Have you been cheating on me this whole time? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. His smirk told me everything I needed to know. I asked, piecing together the puzzle of his habitual late returns, all under the pretense of work or social engagements, while I worked tirelessly to clear his debts. His smug expression didn't falter for a second. I'm not unfaithful, he said casually. I've already found my next wife. I wanted to divorce you and marry her, which is why I waited for you to finish paying off my debt. Tears welled up as the absurdity of the situation hit me. The lavish feast I had prepared blurred before my tear-filled eyes. Get the hell out of here, he snapped, thrusting the divorce papers at me. My anger surged, boiling my blood faster than any sorrow or despair could settle in. Okay, but you'll regret this, I forced the words out, determined not to let him break me. No, I won't, he sneered. Why would I regret divorcing an old hag like you? Old hag? I thought to myself, almost amused. If I'm an old hag, then you're an old fart. His delusional self-image was so ridiculous it actually helped me regain my composure. Taking the divorce papers in hand, I declared calmly, I'm going to take this with me for now. With a heavy heart, I gathered my belongings and walked out of the home we had shared for 22 years. The abrupt end to my marriage left me reeling. Alone at last, tears of emptiness and frustration streamed down my face. I needed closure and justice. Soon after, I consulted with my attorney to draft a proper divorce agreement and sent it to Scott. I'd also requested a background check on his new fiancée, determined to understand what I was up against. Not long after, Scott called me, his voice thick with fury. Hey, Helen, what the hell is this document? He barked. I could almost imagine his face turning a deep shade of red on the other end. It's a divorce agreement. What about it? I replied, keeping my tone calm and even. I know what it is, he spat, but what's this about a loan agreement? Why do I have to pay you back? His voice was filled with disbelief and anger, confused by the financial claims I had laid out. This isn't just about a loan. It's about the money I paid on your behalf during our marriage, I explained. He struggled to grasp the situation, protesting, You chose to make those payments out of your own goodwill? This is ridiculous. Why are you bringing all this up now? Because, I said, my voice steady, our circumstances have changed, and you'll face the consequences. I did it as your wife, I responded firmly, but if we're getting divorced, that changes things. It's only fair you repay me. The reality of the situation seemed to hit him then. He hadn't considered the financial implications when he asked for the divorce. Armed with my years of experience working in insurance and investments and my connections with top-tier attorneys, I was prepared. The amount he owed me, including interest, was over $360,000. I was adamant about getting exactly that amount back. When he saw the name of a well-known local attorney on the document, he finally grasped the seriousness of the situation. You know I don't have that kind of money, he protested weakly. Sell the store to fund it then. If that's what it takes, so be it, I suggested. His response turned desperate. If I do that, I won't have anything left. You're only 54, I pointed out. You can still find a job. It's time you figured it out, just like I have. My resolve was clear. I was determined to start my next chapter on my own terms, free from his debt and deceit. The conversation was going nowhere, and I was ready to end the call, but curiosity got the better of me. So, how's it going with your new bride-to-be? I asked casually. None of your business, he snapped back. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. His tone said it all. It sounded like things weren't going as planned. Good luck, I said, amusement still in my voice as I prepared to hang up. Wait a minute, he interrupted urgently. I've decided not to marry her. We can start over, he pleaded. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Start over? Don't kid yourself. I don't want you, I yelled, finally losing my patience. I hung up, my head spinning with disbelief. Had I looked as ridiculous as him during our 22 years together? I had respected him once, watching him work tirelessly for his store and customers. But now, it was clear he was just a fool. The story of his remarriage had started innocently enough. He had flirted with a part-time university student named Elizabeth, saying, "You're so cute, Elizabeth. Will you be my wife?" She played along, jokingly responding, "Well, I'd think about it if you made me a full-time housewife." But he took her seriously. The idea of marrying a man over 40 years her senior was nothing but a joke to her, until he began pressing her persistently. It got serious enough that her parents intervened and obtained a restraining order against him. Reading the private investigator's report, I laughed so hard I started hyperventilating. All those nights he'd come home late, spitting stories of working late at the store. It had all been a lie, and the truth was utterly absurd. I used to think he was slaving away for his business, but in reality, he was spending his nights at bars and strip clubs, hitting on younger women, boasting about his so-called charm. "I'm surprisingly popular with young girls," he'd say, grinning smugly. "I'm a salesman, so I have this approachable aura. I get along with everyone." The report revealed the sad truth. His delusions were laughable. He'd tell the girls, "People often say I look young. Don't you think so?" They cringed, but he remained oblivious. To him, I was just a source of money, and his distorted view of himself turned him into a ridiculous figure, nearly landing him in legal trouble. Ironically, he wasn't unfaithful, not because he was loyal, but because he wasn't appealing enough to find a mistress. The whole mess started when his friend Benjamin became a grandfather. Enviously, my ex declared he wanted a grandchild too. I sharply reminded him that he could hardly afford to think like that while I was clearing his debts. He was humiliated. Looking back, I'm relieved I didn't waste my golden years with him. After we divorced, there was confusion over property division, but he didn't fight the settlement. My lawyer had a reputation for being tough, and it made me wonder how someone as spineless as him had ever run a business. In the end, he had to sell his shop to pay me off. Just before the sale, all his employees quit, and his customers were outraged that he was selling the family business to settle a divorce. It sent shockwaves through our community, but many felt he got what he deserved. The whole ordeal became a local spectacle, almost comedic in its absurdity. Even if he hadn't sold the shop, the negative publicity would have run him out of business eventually. Selling before hitting rock bottom was probably the only smart decision he made. Still, the sale didn't cover everything, so he's stuck working part-time to pay me back. Occasionally, he still sends me messages, admitting fault and begging for a reunion. Even after blocking him, he tries from new numbers. My attorney warned him that if he contacts me again, we pursue a restraining order. Thankfully, the calls have stopped since then. Looking back, I realize how fortunate I am to have escaped a life tied to his failures and fantasies. His desperate chase after a youthful mirage not only embarrassed him but also alienated everyone around him. Now, as he continues his part-time work to settle his debts, I'm grateful for the peace and independence I've found. His story is a cautionary tale about living beyond one's means and the dangers of refusing to accept reality. As for me, guess what I'm doing now? I'm a marriage counselor. At 52, I joined a friend's matchmaking service, a complete shift from my previous career in finance and insurance. Back then, I helped singles manage practical life aspects but craved something more personally fulfilling. So, I took the leap into helping people find love. In my current role, I focus on helping couples start their relationships on the right foot, encouraging open, honest discussions about important issues like money and future plans. Our direct approach has resonated with clients, and membership has soared. Having lived through my own ups and downs, I'm driven by a desire to help others avoid the mistakes I made. Though I earn less than before, the joy I feel from helping people build lasting relationships is immeasurable. Every day, I guide people toward happiness, and this work has become my new source of fulfillment. After separating from my ex, I discovered my own happiness, and now I'm helping others find theirs. Each day brings a new opportunity to make a positive impact, and this role has given my life a deep sense of purpose.